Hail and well met, travelers. This is A Lil Spooky. My name is Everett, and this is my co-host,
Colleen.
And this is a podcast about things that we think are just a little bit spooky.
Just a little.
Anything like aliens or cryptids. When you find out what a bully stick really is.
Oh, God,
Spoiler alert, it's bull penis.
It's penis.
Dog treats are actually just animal parts. At least they're using everything, I guess.
Yeah, it's just when I went out to buy them one time, I looked at the ingredients because I don't want to get my dog something that has like a bunch of weird fillers in it. Like I don't want to spend a lot of money on fillers.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the ingredients on a bully stick and it just says pizzle. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, but there's only one ingredient and it's probably good enough for a dog.
One Google search later, what is pizzle?
It's penis. You'd think they put that on the bag so that you are fully aware you're leaving the store with two whole penises.
Why do you think they're called bully sticks?
They're bull penises.
But like bully, like are they mean? Or is it just like Theodore Roosevelt, like, oh, bully?
I think it's just bull with a Y at the end.
Okay. Well,
anyways,
of course, this is a podcast about spooky things. So what are we talking about today, Colleen? For those listening, I have no idea what Colleen's about to say. I'm going in blind. I don't know what she's going to talk about today.
I personally, now when it comes to like stories, spooky stories, I think monster stories and cryptid stories they're like entertaining and they're interesting. But when it comes to alien stories, they are something I genuinely sometimes find spooky.
Fear of the unknown.
But also like
Uncanny Valley a little bit too.
Yes, but also like so many instances over decades and like corroborating stories. I realize I'm sure there's probably explanations, but sometimes there aren't. And it's fascinating. And when an alien story is done right, it can be terrifying.
Like The Fourth Kind. That movie was a little freaky.
That movie, did you see, was it The Fourth Kind? Is that the one I'm thinking of where it's got the real footage and the fake footage?
Well, quote unquote real
quote
footage.
Unquote real footage. Well, when I saw it, it was past midnight. I was very tired and I was convinced it was real and it terrified me.
The whole ad campaign for that movie was kind of the same as Paranormal Activity, where when it first came out and was released in theaters, everyone assumed it was real footage.
Right.
Yes.
It's just that terrifies me, that there's like some other entity we know nothing about that knows about us. Anyways, this story is not like that story.
Oh, okay.
This has elements. It has the makings of a great alien story.
Okay.
But as I go through it, you will probably be able to poke holes in it. But it's still kind of spooky.
Well, I'm pumped. Let's get into it because I want to know what we're actually talking about.
This is the story of the giant Palos Verdes space brains. Have you ever heard of this?
I don't think so.
All right.
I mean,
good.
I'm familiar with like brains in like sci-fi stuff, but I don't know if I've ever heard of this.
All right. Well, this is a good story. I will say giant brains is kind of a misnomer.
Are they just bigger than human brains?
Well, I'll explain. Okay. So let's set the scene. It's August 17th, 1971 in Palos Verdes, California, which is a subregion of like the LA metropolitan area. I don't know much about California, so I actually had to look it up in a map. But this is late summer. I'm sure it's like warm, like super nice out. And it's nighttime. So there's a couple of like guys in their late 20 somethings, let's say like 27, 28. And their names are Peter Rodriguez and John Hodges. And they're hanging out at a friend's house. They all lived in the same neighborhood, like minutes from each other. So I'm guessing they probably hung out at each other's houses all the time.
Getting into stuff they weren't supposed to do.
Right. Well, on this particular night, Peter and John stayed at their friend's house until like way late. Unfathomably late for me, 2 a.m.
You said, how old are these people?
Late 20s. I don't have exact ages.
Why are they having sleepovers at 28 years old?
They just stayed until 2 a.m.
Oh, okay.
And then they decided to leave.
Sure.
But like,
okay.
what did What if 20-something dudes do alone at a house at 2 a.m.?
Drink and play video games, except not in 1971, so probably just drink.
Drink and listen to records?
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyways, around 2 a.m., Peter and John are like, it's late. It's time to go. And they both get into John's car. And John turns the headlights on and
Oh, God, you actually kind of scared me.
There are 2 disembodied brains plopped in the middle of the street, like 6 feet in front of their car.
Ew.
But they're not like any normal brains. They're described by both of them, Peter and John, as being blue and shrouded by a localized vapor. Vape-nish.
Yeah, vape-nish. Weird. Okay. So it's like an aura or something.
Yep. One of them was slightly larger than a softball. They described it as an overgrown softball. So that's why it's not giant. But to me, that's the size of a normal, like, human brain. Maybe a little smaller.
A little smaller, I think. Yeah.
But, like, fine, a kid brain. But the second one was the size of a human torso.
Oh, okay. So that's the big one.
Right. But this gives a lot of room for interpretation because I looked and I could not find, like, more specific dimensions. Is this, like, my torso? A baby torso? Your torso?
I assume an adult torso, if they specified that.
It just said human torso. I mean, if we're talking about a baby, it'd be like the same size as a softball brain. But like, if we're talking
I think
Rock,
I think we can assume it's an adult torso if they just said human torso, a fully grown human.
I'm gonna go in the middle anyways and just say it's an average adult male torso.
Okay.
Which for a brain is like giant.
Very much so.
But what makes it even stranger is that the bigger brain had a red eye lodged into the middle, like in the butt crack of the brain. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like between the 2 hemispheres.
Yeah, the cheeks, the lobes.
Well,
So it's
not
got,
the lobes, the hemisphere.
Isn't there brain lobes?
Yeah, but I don't think it's just one lobe or 2 lobes that are separated by a crack.
Anyways, giant red eye, like wedged in the butt crack.
You might get to this. Is there like brain stems, like, or is it just the brain?
That's never mentioned. They just call blue brain localized vapor eye in the butt crack.
I have the beholder in the butt crack.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So as you remember, the 2 get in the car, they turn the lights on, immediately see these brains. After like milliseconds of being confused, they just get freaked out and they just book it the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
They're just gone. And what would your reaction be?
Probably the same. And I assume these guys were probably drunk or on some sort of substance. And, you know.
And we have no idea. I have no idea.
I mean, I think it's just safe to assume that. Though.
Right. But here's the thing. You see 2 brains in the middle of the street just laying there. You're going to just leave? They haven't done anything to you. You're just going to run away?
Yeah, because, and I was just going to say, going on the assumption that they are on some sort of substance, you know, especially if it is something illegal, they don't want to have to call the cops and then also get cited for something.
Well, let's assume they were drinking.
Okay.
This is 1971.
Yes.
They weren't doing anything illegal.
Okay.
And you know what? Let's just assume they're not even drunk. They're like,
just,
you know, they've had a couple beers.
Yeah.
You're an average late 20-somethings guy.
Yes, and I am currently sober. So I'm just imagining if I was in the street right now, even with a friend, walked up and saw this, I would turn around because it is so unnatural and so weird.
Really?
I would fear for my safety.
Man,
But also we have phones now too. I would take a picture as I'm walking away.
I'm straight up poking that thing with a stick.
That's why you would die first in a horror movie.
I would be so curious if it's just like a thing plopped laying there. It doesn't seem like a threat. It's smaller than I am. It's just a torso.
I mean, I feel like in the Alien movies too, like the face huggers, they probably, you know, feign like they're dead or whatever. And then as soon as you poke them, they attach.
Yeah, but I'm not expecting to see aliens. I'm just seeing a weird brain. I assume
No, that's what I mean. Like, yeah, I wouldn't touch anything. I don't know what it is.
Man, I'd totally poke that thing. Anyways, after they ran away, drove away, sped off, pretended it never happened, John drops Peter off at his house. And then he goes home. And remember, they all live in the same neighborhood, so it's just like a 10-minute round trip.
Okay, yeah.
However, when he arrived home, he pulled into his driveway and he looked at the clock and it was 4:30 a.m.
Lost time.
Yes, keep in mind they left at 2. So he's got about 2-ish missing hours of time, maybe 2.5, depending on what time they actually left.
Right.
Okay, so let's just talk about the concept of missing time for a second.
Mm-hmm.
This is a typical alien abduction thing. Like for those of you who have like heard an alien story, generally this is a typical occurrence.
Very common thing to report is missing time.
Right. Like a person sees lights in the sky or, a spacecraft or street brains, and suddenly they wake up even though they're in the exact same spot doing the exact same thing, but hours or days have passed.
But in this circumstance, though, there was no report of them falling asleep or anything like that.
Right. But generally in missing time, you don't. You just kind of snap back and focus. It's like the one time in my life I got blackout drunk and like I have no memory of it. And then all of a sudden I snapped back into focus, like in the kitchen of a party. And I remember everything from there.
But they didn't even report like losing focus either, did they? They booked it and left.
They booked it. They left. He dropped him off at home. He dropped Peter off at home. 4:30. So it was like nothing happened.
Right. So that is weird. That's what I mean. Like, it's not like if we were to assume that there was some sort of abduction scenario or like they were just, put under for whatever reason, that didn't happen. They just lost time. But everything was like concurrent timeline of events happening.
Yeah. It's like they left the brains. Nothing happened. Everything went as normal, except for some reason, his clock said 4:30. But it's missing. I mean, it's still within the concept of missing time.
No, yeah, I know. I'm just saying that it is weird because they have like a timeline with no reason there should be missing time.
Yeah, you mean like in most abduction scenarios, like you see a UFO and then like you remember them beaming you up and then you wake up back in your car or whatever.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. This is the only difference is he has no memory of being abducted. He just has the memory of seeing brains in the street and then leaving. Right.
And I've already said it, but I'm just saying events happened in sequence and it's weird that there's 2 hours missing.
Yes, like exactly.
Yes.
So here's like where John and I differ. Is like he was
he's a dude and
he's
you're
a
woman.
dude, yes, and I'm a woman, but he was just like, that's weird. And he
So he was drunk.
Well, no, he was just like, that's weird. But he had like like he would think back about it all the time. Like what happened?
Mm-hmm.
What's the deal with those brains? And he didn't do anything about it for 5 years until 1976 when curiosity got the better of him. I the next day would be calling Peter and I'd be like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah. Or like, be like, do you remember missing time?
Or or like, remember those brains? So,
he didn't even bring up the brains.
No,
I thought you were just talking about the time.
No, he completely just packed away the whole story.
That's freaking stupid. Like, why not?
We don't know if he called Peter the next day and was like, "Hey, you remember those brains?"
Okay.
But he didn't. Like further than that, nothing happened. He didn't like report it to anyone. He didn't like draw pictures.
They ran
of
away
it.
though too.
Yes, and they did run away. So like to him, it was a split-second experience, except for the weird missing time, which would freak me out. If there were 2 hours of time that I couldn't account for, I mean, granted, 2 hours isn't as long as some people's
3
accounts of
days
missing time. Like, not much can happen, but you don't know. I mean, you could have killed a man.
Yeah, this guy's dumb for just forgetting about it for 5 years.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it's just from the couple articles I read, he just like it slowly ate away at him until he got super curious. Like, who is this guy? I mean, why would you wait 5 years though? Like, what if they came back and you didn't know what you were talking about?
Maybe he was scared that like people would like mock him or just not take him seriously, so just forget about it.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but like, what if there were other people who had the same experience, or like, what if during those 2 hours they told you like how to end world hunger? You don't remember.
Unlikely.
You don't know. We're talking about a torso-sized brain. Anyways. In 1976, John decides to go under hypnosis to try and figure out what the hell happened. Okay, before I get into what hypnosis revealed to him, we got to talk about hypnosis.
We gotta.
Okay, this is a controversial subject
Yes.
from everything I read. So it seems to be factions. Like most people wouldn't consider it credible, but a lot of psychiatrists and like legitimate psychiatrists and doctors use it as a tool.
Yeah, to bring up like past trauma and stuff.
Yes.
But, like, I don't think it should be taken seriously.
Well, yeah. Okay. So they use this technique to unlock something in your brain that might have been like holding certain memories back for some reason. So you're in an altered state of consciousness. So whatever that barrier in your brain is, like maybe you could get past it because you're more relaxed. You're not necessarily focused on your general. And you hear about this with abuse victims or like dissociative disorders.
Yep.
And it's definitely been used in other alien abduction stories.
Fourth kind.
Right. So here's the problem. There's no way of telling whether these memories are real or fake.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
it's possible if the hypnotist said anything that could influence what the patient is saying they remember, and hypnosis is known to leave you open to suggestion.
Yep, open to suggestion, change your memories, and
right. And I mean, like an especially bold instance of this would be Satanic Panic, right? 1980s. Didn't they hypnotize children
to hypnotize kids to help with their witness statements and
to uncover sexual abuse and
fake sexual abuse that didn't happen.
And those victims were influenced completely by the line of questioning from the doctor, which can be done on purpose or completely innocently, like trying to uncover something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't take hypnosis as being entirely accurate, but there are some recorded instances of forensic hypnosis being used to assist in memory recollection. And there have been studies showing the effects of hypnosis. So it is sometimes used as an actual tool for bringing up memories, but you have to take into account pretty much the hypnotist. And we don't know
like their agenda, like what are they trying to do?
Yeah. And we don't know anything about this hypnotist. We don't know the exact questions he or she asked. But I mean, long story short, hypnosis has been used quite a bit to recover memories of alien abduction. And a lot of the memories different people have, completely unrelated abduction stories, tend to jive with each other. Whether or not that's because they've heard previous abduction stories and already believe they've been abducted or not. But all we have of this account is the fact that Peter also saw these brains.
Right.
And this hypnosis story. This is all we have about the story. So, while you don't have to take it as fact, let's just assume John at least believes that this is the truth.
Right.
So I want to believe, so I'm just going to assume all of this actually happened. Okay, so that was my hypnosis caveat, just so the listeners don't take this too seriously.
Well, okay, here's my stance on hypnosis in general. I don't think it's fake by any means, but like you were saying, the hypnotist may or may not have some sort of agenda to try and get certain pieces of information out.
Right.
So I think because of that, I think hypnosis should be only used in circumstances where you're not taking the recollections of memory as fact and you're more so looking for clues. So maybe in a cold case file, like, oh, I just can't remember what color sweater this guy was wearing and where he put it or something. And then maybe that will lead to finding evidence that was long lost, but it's not pinning a crime on someone.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like if you go into it believing that it's an alien abduction story, then, I assume you've probably done research about it. Right.
And then if you go into it thinking that's what it is, that's what's going to happen when you're hypnotized.
Or if the hypnotist is specifically doing alien abduction things in their line of questioning.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, this is something he genuinely believes has happened. And at least in the case of the brains, Peter saw them as well. So that part can be corroborated with one other person.
Right.
And they were both able to draw pictures of the brains that look the exact same. Okay. So they at least had that shared experience. So that might lend some credibility. Honestly, it's highly possible that some of this happened to him but it's been stylized in his brain, or
Right.
not all of this happened. I mean, like, this is
romanticized from just
yes, but I mean,
Overtime.
the possibility of abduction. I mean, it totally could have happened. It might not have. Odds are. You're trying to make this less spooky.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying it like I was just saying, hypnotism shouldn't be taken too seriously. And, this could have happened, or it also could have been just random brains on the ground from a science experiment or something.
Right. Even so, all we have is this story.
Yeah,
So this is what I take to be the quote unquote truth. Okay. So remember when I said that they saw the brains, they were confused for like a split second and then immediately just like booked it the fuck out of there.
Right.
That's actually not what happened, according to John's memories. All of this from now on is what John remembers.
And before it was Peter, now it's John.
Nope, Peter's the one he dropped off at home.
Oh, okay.
And then John got back into his car, went to his house.
Oh, you're saying the what you're about to say is from his
hypnosis. His memory hypnosis. Yes. Okay. So they didn't actually get out of there, according to John's brain. Apparently, while he and Peter were in the car, the big boy brain spoke to him telepathically, saying, "Take the time to understand yourselves. The time draws near when you shall need to. You shall not remember this incident until we meet again."
Mm-hmm. Oh.
What?
West, the hypnotist is the brain.
Ah, interesting. Well, here are my questions just off the bat from those, 3 sentences. First off, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, like, why would you ruin my night just to tell me that? Like, why would you even bother making me forget that? You said I'm not going to remember it. What? Like, it didn't mean anything. Why would I have to forget that little bullshit?
Well, because you're going to remember it when he comes back. And
right.
And also, it's a brain, so it's probably not a he. I don't know why I said that. It.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, I don't know. Fudge off with all that. Why didn't you just, why not, why are you meeting me again? Why not just do it all the first time?
True.
Anyways, John remembered that after that completely useless message, he dropped Peter off at his house and then went home. And when he was home, the brains were waiting for him in his driveway. So they gave him a message
that he would
told him he was going to forget it, and then immediately just went to his house to talk to him again.
Yeah, that's weird.
Right.
Well, maybe they just wanted to get him alone.
Right, true. But why bring Peter into it at all? Like, why show yourself to 2 dudes getting into a car? Why not
they
just
were in the road, right? They were just lying on the road, you said?
Yeah.
They didn't really show themselves. They were just there.
They just, like, flopped down.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what were they doing creeping outside of a house full of 3 dudes? You couldn't pay me.
Maybe they were.
Watch
I mean, I don't know what is about to
dudes.
happen in this upcoming conversation, but maybe they were trying to speak to one person, and now that they had this opportunity, this is when they appear again.
Why not? Why go all the way to John's house? Why not follow them to Peter's house and talk to Peter?
Maybe John's special.
Maybe, but we find out that he's not.
Oh, poor John.
Anyways, after this illogical conclusion of them showing up at his house, John is understandably freaked out.
Pissed off.
I would be pissed off by this obvious breach of privacy. Anyways, he blacks out after that.
Oh, well, that's not cool.
Brains in the driveway, he blacks out. But his next memory is of him waking up in a control room.
So he was abducted.
Yes. So from what he describes, he basically woke up on the set of like Star Trek Next Gen. Like it's all lined with computers and panels and buttons and beep, boopity, boppity, boop, boop, beep.
Okay, sure. So he wasn't being probed by like a brainstem or something. He was...
Right. He just woke up and he's standing in a control room.
Okay.
Okay, but this to me is a red flag because how can these big ass brains be lecturing us about knowing ourselves when they clearly haven't even figured out touch screens? You got beepity boops and computers, walls, no touch screens?
Well, they don't have fingers anyway.
Well, you're about to find out.
Oh.
Okay, so
they're only fingers.
It's just brains made of fingers. So the 2 brains were in the control room, and John looks around and he sees a group of bald, 7-foot tall, gray humanoids.
Tall grays.
Yes. Well, potentially. And they have 6 fingers and toes.
Ew.
They have very thin lips. They're freaky.
Okay.
They tell John that the brains aren't actually the aliens. The brains are just a communication device that they use to translate and converse telepathically. Yeah, kind of like an organic computer.
Okay.
Essentially. And to me, this is another red flag because, like, they don't have touchscreens, but they can make big ass living organic giant brain translators. Like, who goes?
How do you know there's no touchscreens? How well was it described?
It was essentially described as a Star Trek control room.
Did they not have touchscreens in Star Trek?
No, it was all just like buttons and lights. Trust me, I've seen it a lot.
Okay.
Star Trek is bomb.
Maybe they placed them. Maybe he wasn't really abducted. Maybe he was placed in something that he was familiar with, but was still alien to him, and that's the situation they wanted him in.
Okay, now that does make sense because he later states that he could see everything in front of him, but when he looked behind him, it was just pitch blackness. So he was under the impression that it could have just been like simulation or like a hologram of some kind.
Right.
So
Holodeck
that is sure. Well, yeah, but that's entirely possible. Yeah. I guess to make him feel more comfortable, even though it would definitely. Why not just keep him in his own room?
Maybe they did take him somewhere, but they disguised the area they took him to so he couldn't remember.
I mean, true, entirely possible. So through the brains, these humanoids explain that they are from out of this world.
Far out, dude.
And they show John holographic images that just show a bunch of nuclear explosions. And they've got this like TV screen and it has Earth, like an image of Earth on it. And all over Earth are these pinpoints of light, like weird, like stars, I guess.
On the hologram of Earth.
On this TV screen with an image of Earth.
Okay.
It has like these pinpoints on it.
Okay. Yeah.
And they explain to John that the pinpoints represent places on Earth that have too much power, quote unquote, too much power.
Power in the sense of like
no explanation.
Being too powerful, or like there's too much like
energy,
literal fuel.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Just says too much power, and they show him a video of another planet that they had to destroy because it had too much power.
Fuck them, dude.
Right? Like who? This isn't the power police.
Yeah.
Anyways, they tell
power over what? Because
right.
We don't know about these guys, so like, how do we have power over them?
Girl, I don't know. They tell John that the human race is going to have to immediately stop abusing this power or they will suffer the consequences. So
maybe they're literally talking about just fuel.
That's honestly, that was my original thought. Because if they're showing him videos of nuclear explosions,
maybe the power is literally nuclear weapons, and the pinpoints were the areas in which they were stored.
So it's both literal power and
it's not really
human
It's
power.
not really fuel. It's just weapons.
Weaponry.
But, yeah.
Oh, okay, let's break this down.
Break it down.
They pick up a random young man from LA. They pull him into their spaceship and they scold him for being part of a planet that has too much power. Like it's his fault. First off, like, why traumatize this guy? Yeah. You're already freaky. Why you gotta pull him up to the spaceship? Can't you just tell him this stuff in his kitchen?
Just a guy that's drinking with his buds.
Yeah, can't you just have brought his brain down his kitchen and like broken this news to him with like some tea or whatever space tea is?
Or go to any sort of like person with power and not just
yes,
a dude.
That was another. I mean, is there power on our planet are we threatening other planets? We are unaware that other life exists on other planets that we would even be affecting. And why would you pick a random dude? Why not like go to the president of the United States?
Or like, I was just saying, go to someone in a position of power.
Yeah, I mean, even if you knew nothing about Earth, it seems to me that like before bringing this doomsday message,
do a little research.
You would like if you're on Earth for even 1 hour, you're creeping outside someone's house, somebody's watching the news. Just sit there and watch it for a minute. You're translating brain. You can understand it.
I guess. I mean, I don't know. I feel like if they're so smart into, being able to determine that we have too much power, they should also know that, at least go to like a mayor, a governor,
Right.
or the president,
even after you give this message, be like, hey, tell the president.
Tell Jerry. Give Jerry this message.
At least give him an instruction to notify someone. Instead, they have him forget the whole encounter.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense.
Fuck? That's stupid.
So they gave him this warning. They said, Earth has too much power. If this continues, we're going to have to destroy you. Now, please forget everything we told you.
These aliens are literally just screwing with this guy.
Yeah, which that's diabolical.
Might be, maybe they're in the same situation John and his friends were in, where they're just having some fun and maybe play a prank.
That would be hilarious. If that's what actually it was, that's hilarious and also horrifying.
I feel like that's why in other stories aliens probe things. It's because like they're just trying to screw with people. What information do you get from the ball?
I mean, I get like the first time you're like trying to examine a human. Yeah, but like, why would you need to do it more than once?
Right.
Anyways, he was not probed.
Okay.
As far as we know, at least he did not remember being probed, or if he did, he did not admit to being probed. So they warn him about Earth having too much power. They make him forget about it. But here's the thing. What do you think their motive would be? Like, these aliens could be lying. They could be asking us to like tone down our nuclear shit in order to take us over, because they know they can't like compete.
That's
with
basically
our
what their
weapons.
message was. It's like, relinquish some of your power, otherwise we will destroy you.
Right, but they've made it clear that they have the power to destroy us.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Maybe
indicate that we right now have more power than them?
Or are they just trying to catch up?
Right.
Like they have the ability to travel through space, but they don't have whatever we have.
Right. I'm like, I can't tell if they're being genuinely like, we are citizens of this universe and we're afraid that if you have too much power, you're going to ruin it for everyone else. Or if this is like an evil race of aliens trying to take us over and they're trying to get us freaked out enough to eliminate our own weaponry so that they have the power to destroy us.
But also assuming that these aliens made John forget everything. Why did they do that, though?
Good question.
Or maybe it was just a side effect of like something that happened, like, and that wasn't intentional. So maybe they were hoping he would spread this message.
Yeah. We have no idea. None. So after they finished like being totally lame and just dissing Earth for a while, John describes his head as kind of like buzzing a little, and then he woke up back in his car. No brains to be seen.
Okay, how do you interpret this then? Was this all in his head? Like not like assuming that this actually happened, did they like enter his thoughts or did they actually abduct him?
I guess I never really thought about it, but it makes more sense to me if they've got the power of telepathy with these weirdo brains.
Yeah.
Why make all of that work to bring him back up and then dump him back in his car? Why not just make it?
Well, and also the fact that if it was something very similar to like the not the holodeck, but like the whatever it's called in Star Trek, the control room.
Yeah.
Like that's obviously not something aliens would have. That's how we envision it. So I feel like it is something in his head.
Yeah.
And maybe the brains are the true life form, and how he viewed these aliens as tall grays, that's something that was already in science fiction at that point in 1971.
Yeah, I've never even thought of it that way. That would make way more sense. Then again, we're talking about a bunch of like squishy blue brains with butt crack eyes.
I can't remember for sure, but I feel like in Futurama there was a species of brain monsters, and they were like the most intelligent beings, but they also were the most squishy because they were literally brains.
Right. That's a good point. I'm going to go with your theory, because to me, even though the rest of this seems completely illogical, that's the most logical theory. That instead of beaming him up, they just beamed down images into his brain.
Yeah, beamed into.
Yes. So that essentially was the whole encounter in 1971. That's the whole thing. He drops off Peter. He goes home. Brain's waiting for him. They beam him up. They yell at him about Earth. They tell him Earth is lame. He wakes up back in his car.
Do you think Peter was like, this was in October, you said?
August.
Oh, even better. Do you think he was eating like squash at this point, Peter? Peter Pumpkin Eater.
I knew that was coming, and I did the silence to let you do your thing. He could have been, but I think squash is like a more of an October food.
They're also in LA too.
Yeah, I don't. And I'm just. They were. I didn't mention this previously, but they were on a road called Dapple Gray Lane, which just doesn't seem like somewhere you would grow squash.
No.
Maybe though.
That sounds stupid.
Yeah.
Dapple Gray Lane.
Then again, that sounds like a horse, and horses are on farms, and farms grow squash. Anyways, so that was the whole encounter. After he was hypnotized, John thought that the whole spacecraft might have just been a holograph, as I said, because all he could see behind him was blackness. He did also believe, after being hypnotized, that they implanted a translator cell into his brain in order to track him and keep in contact with him.
Okay.
Which is interesting because it's been 5 years and he has heard nothing.
Right.
But
did he say that because that's what the buzzing was in his head or whatever?
I could not
find
any more information. However, after he was hypnotized, so 5 years after the initial event, the aliens did contact him.
Mm-hmm.
So a few weeks after his hypnosis, he began to receive telepathic messages with spooky predictions.
Oh, okay.
Okay, they predicted that in 1983, a nuclear war would break out in the Middle East and spread to Europe and result in the use of atomic weapons. But that never happened. So like Earth 1, Alien 0.
Yeah.
They also stated that after this atomic war, the aliens would finally establish like a public dialogue between Earth and themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, again, they were either wrong or lying because this is the first time I ever heard about it.
Mm-hmm. Unless the aliens didn't reveal that they were aliens, but instead just like took over like part of the government or something.
Like reptilian?
Yes.
Or potentially, even more simply, we averted a war in 1983 because John warned the correct people. And then since there was no nuclear war, the aliens never contacted us.
John, thank you. You saved us all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not...
Who did he tell?
I don't. That was just an idea that came up in my head. I don't know. But that is it. That's the story of the space brains.
Okay. What does Peter have to say? Did he actually say anything?
So Peter did at one point corroborate that he saw the brains in the street. He corroborated the exact same thing.
But that's all that happened to him.
Yes, he saw the brains. John drops him off.
Okay.
And they were both asked to draw pictures, and they both drew the same picture, essentially.
I can envision the brains, but I'm trying to envision this blue vapor you described. Is it like actually an aura?
It's not blue vapor. It's just centralized vapor.
I thought you said blue.
They're blue brains.
Oh, blue brains. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to...
I'm just picturing a steamy brain.
Yeah, is it like steamy because it was cold, like super frozen from being in space, and then...
Or it was hot out? Yeah.
Or is it like actually an aura of like, that's how they like float when they travel or something?
Well, they kind of made it clear that these brains were just like plopped on the ground, like a bunch of unwanted
probably
turds.
Tired from traveling to Earth.
My guess it was more of like a steam because they called it a vapor. Okay, so as I was saying, I love abduction stories. I think
Abduction.
Love abductions. I love abduction stories. I think some of them can be legitimately terrifying.
This was more interesting than most.
Yes,
I've heard,
this
though.
one's silly. And I mean, admittedly, it has a ton of holes in it. But there are a bunch of similarities between this story and other abduction stories, namely
Lost Time,
possible
abduction.
Yep. Being forewarned of like certain things, the microchip.
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking the chip too. That seems to be a common thing.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were maybe or maybe not tall grays.
Yeah. Yes. But I mean, I guess if I'm going to be a buzzkill, like what were these dudes doing before all of this went down? Like,
Yeah, that's what I said at the very beginning. They're probably smoking ganja. And
yeah, I mean, they could have taken like a handful of pills and fallen asleep in his car.
I don't think pills were much of a thing in 71 as they are now.
I don't know. I was not around. I mean, more likely they got drunk and then smoked that ganja.
Even so, I feel like the encountering brains, alien brains, especially the one that was bigger with the eye, that is significantly more creepy than just a gray or like a reptilian.
Yes. Being spoken to by a brain.
In your head.
In your head. I mean, the concept of this story is spooky. In reading it, it ends up being fairly entertaining rather than spooky. But like, I think the story's great. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10 entertainment value.
Yeah, I really like it too. I just wish there was more that happened after this. That's all. I'm wanting more. I give it an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 for that reason, because I feel like it's unresolved and I want more information.
Okay, but believability scale.
Believability, especially compared to other alien abduction stories, a little less, but also not completely this. Like, I'm not completely thinking this is a hoax. The hypnosis thing is what bothers me.
Yep.
I give it a 6 out of 10 for believability.
I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10 because it has...
Oh, you're even
more so. I'm very skeptical about this because although it's a great story and it has all of the elements I like in an abduction story, it doesn't have, like you said, anything to back it up. Like in a lot of other abduction stories that are more believable to me, there are like the exact same thing has happened to somebody else in a completely other part of the world or a completely other time, and they didn't have contact with each other. Or
even more, I think, scary in some circumstances. It is a lot more localized, but it's unrelated people that would have had no way to plan ahead a story. So if someone in the same city on the same night, but completely never met each other, unrelated, because those have happened too. Mm-hmm. I think that's terrifying too.
Yeah, I just, the concept as a whole is to me believable. Maybe not all of the aspects of alien abduction, traditional alien abduction stories, but it's terrifying. This story in particular, I think you can explain away, or like a lot of it, or enough of it is illogical enough for me to be like, something is weird here. Mm-hmm. And I did not read up enough on John or Peter to know, like, did they make any money from this?
Yeah, or where are they now?
Right. So, I mean, that would even lend more or less credibility to the story.
John or Peter, if you're listening, please let us know.
Yeah.
John, I heard you saved the world. So...
yeah, why aren't you more well known?
Yeah.
We should know about the guy who averted a nuclear war in 1983. Anyways, that's the story. I loved it. I'm going to be looking at more abduction stories. My plan is when this episode comes out, I'm going to post the drawings of the brains.
I want to see that.
Yep. And they're weird. That is the one thing about this story that can't be explained away other than, maybe he was high on something. But the fact that both of them saw these brains. But,
I mean, they were also friends, though, and they could have just, planned some hijinks together.
Right.
So, I mean, you always have to take that into consideration,
right.
too.
I guess but like to think the best of people. As a story, though, I do want to
see a visual. What do these brains look like?
Right.
Post it. Post it on the social medias.
Will do. If you want to see these pics, our social media is NerdSloth HQ on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you have...
rate, subscribe, comment.
So, yeah.
Smash all of the buttons.
Exactly. And if there are any stories that you have that are spooky in any way...
and you would like to have them shared on the podcast.
And you'd like to have them shared on the podcast. Or even if you don't want them shared on the podcast, you just want us to read them. I would love that. So,
and if you do want to send us stories to... specify, please, if you would like us to share your name or not. Like if you just want to remain anonymous, or if you just want to share your first name.
Yeah. And we'll take spooky stories.
about
silly
whatever
stories
you want.
with an element of spooky that have occurred to you.
All we're asking for is something personal, though. Don't just like send us creepypastas.
Yeah, no,
Although
we want true
I do
stories.
like creepypastas a lot, but I mean, I also know where to find them. I want to hear your stories.
I guess the thing about this podcast is when I say spooky, I think spooky to me is like a real...
Yeah, something that actually happened to you.
Whether or not it... you have to believe it happens to you.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're not looking for short stories. I mean, if you want to share them, we would love to read them. But what we're looking to share with everyone is what has happened in your life that you find spooky.
Yeah, try to spook us.
We are part of the NerdSloth network. We are very close to Chris and Joseph.
From Saturday Morning Cartoon Boo.
So if you would like, you can spam some memes on our Twitter to the NerdSloth HQ Twitter. Just ask Chris. I don't know. I want to just bug Chris because I don't know if he's going to listen to this.
Send him pictures of pizzles.
Yeah, perfect. Send him pictures of pizzles.
He'd love it. Trust me, I know.
All right. Well, I think that is it for today, y'all.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out and listening to the tale of the space brain. Space brains. Oh my God. All right. Thanks, everyone. We love you.
Love you.
Bye.
So much. So much. Bye.
Presented by NerdSloth,
a place for lazy nerds.
If you like what you heard, consider donating at patreon.com/NerdSloth so we can continue bringing you quality shows. Be sure to also leave us a review and share your favorite episodes and clips on social media. If you're looking for more content, visit us at nerdsloth.com.